Here we have a Villiers 9E motorcycle engine that was removed from a Pengor Penguin amphibious ATV. There is a video of the disassembly of this engine to this point. Today we're going to remove the piston and take this side cover off to gain access to the crankshaft seals on the fan side. There's a fan here, and we're also going to have a look at the cylinder bore. In the previous video we determined that the piston was not reusable, and I'm just going to try to show the damage to the cylinder. So anyway, here's the cylinder. I'm not in the best light here, but there are scratches in it I can feel with my fingernail. You can hear that one. So this cylinder is going to need at least a hone. Pass a hone through it. That might remove the scratches, but that might make it too large, so it may have to actually be bored to the next oversized, so we can put an oversized piston in it. Something else on this cylinder while we have it. Someone has used silicone as a gasket. Not the best gasket. The old gasket is still on here, and gasket sets are available for these engines still, so there's no need really to use that much silicone. At least a light smear of proper sealer would be okay, but anyway, this cylinder is going to need at least a honing, possibly a machining. So we'll have to take that to a shop that does that kind of work and see what they say. So now we're going to remove the piston, since it's not going to be reused, and since it's going to be in the way and possibly damage things. So I'm going to carefully hold it here, remove the clip. Again, even though we're not going to reuse this piston, we can save all the parts just in case. You never know. You don't know until the job is finished what it's going to take. And that clip just disappeared. I will have to find it before I go too much farther. New clips should come with the new piston. Anyway, that clip is here. We probably won't need it. Anyway, I have both clips out. There's a clip here and one on the other side here, and the wrist pin is here. It may or may not simply push out. Well, it's trying. There we go. So there's the wrist pin. I just used a 3/8 ratchet extension, and we'll just remove that. So there's the piston, and we can see the piston's got a few issues. First of all, it's scored. That in alone probably would have done it in, but it's also broken. There's a chunk missing out of it. It's cracked, so that could continue to break. Now there's some markings on here. It's marked front, so we'd know which way to put it back in. Of course, the exhaust is the front of the engine, so that's front. There's some other numbers on here which may be useful determining what actual size this is, whether it's a standard bore or oversized. Anyway, we'll put the piston aside. We'll put the wrist pin and the one circlip we didn't shoot off into the distance in the bag, and we'll continue. Now the connecting rod is free to move here, and it may cause problems, so I'm going to secure it. Just keep it from hitting against the crankcase and damaging it. A couple of rubber bands here. There, so as we move the crankshaft. Connecting rod is not going to smash into anything. Okay, so now we have the piston off out of the way. We know that the cylinder needs machining. We're not sure exactly how much. So we're going to take this fan screen off. We're going to take the fan off. And then we're going to take this outer chain case cover off. It's called a chain case, fan housing. The fan is here. And the engine is the front half of this. And the transmission is the rear half. And in between is a chain that runs from the crankshaft to the clutch. In order to get at the crankshaft seal, which is behind the sprocket that the primary chain runs on, we'll have to take the clutch apart to get the chain off. Anyway, so we'll take the side cover off, this fan screen off here. Three screws that remove it. Actually, removing 3 screws that hold it. Our lock washers on here. I'll try not to lose them. Ziploc style bags, little zipper bags are handy to keep all these small parts in. There's the screen loose. So there's the fan screen off. The screws for the fan screen are off. Side. Now, the fan here. This is an aluminum fan. All the fan blades are here, and these luckily are all intact. Sometimes these engines stick, get partially seized because of the starter, and sometimes a gentle pry with a screwdriver is attempted, but these fan blades break off. So anyway, we're lucky this fan is intact, and to remove it, we're going to have to remove, there's 2 nuts here jammed on it, jammed together, and that is original because the engine turns both directions. They jam a pair of nuts on it. And do I have I do have. I'm going to use an impact wrench here just to give this just a blip. The nuts are coming off here, so there's one. And there's the other, and this is right-hand thread. So there are the 2 nuts. There are the 2 nuts. There's a lock washer in behind that. That may or may not come. Oh, yeah, it's coming out. There's the lock washer. Put them all together. Now, we'll see if the fan will come off. Look at that. There's the fan. It has a felt backing on it. Not sure exactly why they felt the need to put that on there, but there's the fan. It's attached to a hub with screws. We don't need to remove that, but there's the fan. Off and set aside. So, now the inner chain case, sorry, the primary chain case has an outer half, which goes to here, and an inner half, which is here. Now, it surrounds the primary chain, and there's oil in it. See, there's a plug here, or a cap. It can be removed to add oil. The oil level is set by using this drain plug here. It's just a level plug. You pull this level plug out, put the SAE 20 or SAE 30 oil in there until it starts to drill out that hole, and that's the right level. It just needs enough oil for the chain to run in, and it helps lubricate the clutch. The clutch is right here. Anyway, we don't need to remove that plug. So since there is oil in this chain case, there's a seal here on the crankshaft, and there is also a spacer here that the seal runs against. We don't need to remove that. There's also a Woodruff key in here, which is loose, so we're going to remove it before it falls out when we're not paying attention. So there's the Woodruff key off and out of the way, and safely secured in a little zipper bag here. So all that holds the outer chain case on is a nut in here. One nut on a stud. Try to remove it with the wrench here. Actually, the wrench in through here. No, can't get a swing on it. And that socket's too big. It's too thick too. There, that socket will fit. So this nut isn't overly tight. So off comes the nut. Further. Now, there may still be a little bit of oil in this chain case, so I've put some absorbent towels down. There's the washer and nut. Put them in a safe spot too. They're not the same. That nut isn't the same as the one that holds the fan on, so. Okay, so this fan housing should be loose, and it is. Oh, and there comes some oil. So there we see the primary chain, clutch, crankshaft, and a whole bunch of oil I probably should have drained out before I started. Anyway. Just take a second to sop some of that up. So here's actually the spacer. Crankshaft is here. There's a spacer that rides here. This is the spacer. It came off with the outer chain case. It simply runs in the seal that's here, so it has to be clean. That should be polished up before it's reused. Just take some oil out of this. Well, this will need a new gasket. There's part of the gasket there. Someone's put some sealer around here. There is a gasket between this adapter. There should be one there. That red silicone is not original, but anyway, there's a seal there which we will replace. And we'll just get rid of this oily mess here. On my work table. Anyway, it's good to see that that had oil in it and wasn't full of water or something. Okay, so to get at the crankshaft seal, there's another crankshaft seal. This is the crankshaft. There's another seal behind this sprocket. The primary chain, which is a little bit loose here. The primary chain is a one-piece chain. There's no master link in it. So in order to remove that sprocket, which sits on there with a Woodruff key, similar to the Woodruff key there. To remove that, we're going to take the clutch apart. To do that, we're going to need some special tools. We have a clutch nut remover. This is the clutch nut. On here there is another nut. That this nut is a lock nut. This screw sets the length of the push rod. There's a push rod that goes all the way through the engine from here to the other side here. The clutch lever's over here. I don't know if you can see it moving there as I'm moving the clutch lever back here with my finger. So when this lever is squeezed, you can see the nut move there. So when you're squeezing the clutch handle, the clutch cable moves this lever, which pushes a push rod, which pushes this nut out, which takes the tension off the clutch plates. Half of the clutch plates are locked with these tabs to this basket, which is being driven by the engine. And the other half of the clutch, the other clutch discs, which are between these plates with the fingers that are locked here, they're locked to the center hub, which drives the transmission. So, to take the clutch apart, we need to loosen that lock nut and take that screw out, just to get it out of the way, because our special tool, now I've mentioned before, it's important to use tools that fit the fasteners well. This nut has been damaged by tools that don't fit it properly, and now a little bit of a time there, the wrench fit on it on one side, so we're just going to unscrew that. I didn't back that nut off very far. We'll just take that off, take that out, pardon me. See, that's got a little stub on it that the clutch push rod hits against, and the push rod is in there. I'm going to leave it in there. If I had removed the clutch lever, I could push the rod out. But now we're going to use this nut tool. So this has a pair of pins in it that lock in the holes there, and it has a hex on it. We can put a wrench on to loosen it, and we can see that someone's been in here before, because there are marks, probably from, I don't know, a pipe wrench or something, on this nut, because they didn't use this special tool. And the bolt in the middle holds this in place so these pins can't slide out. So we put the pins in, put this bolt in, and it doesn't have to be really tight, just tight enough so that that can't come apart. And then put a socket on there. Try taking this apart without using the impact. It's probably going to be tight enough that I won't be able to hold this by hand. So what I'm going to do, use a strap wrench. So that's going to turn that way. So I'll put the strap wrench on the clutch basket. Snug it up. Put the socket on and snug the strap wrench up a little more. If things cooperate here, and they're not, because of all the oil in here, and the strap wrench is just at the right spot where I can't get a grip on it. Let's see if this will work with this strap wrench. No. Okay, well, as they say, plan B. I'll put this, leave the strap wrench on there. And just, there we go. That was all we needed to loosen that. So that nut is loose. Still slipping. There we go. Okay, so when we take this off, make some room here because there are going to be some parts come off from underneath it. A new surface here. We can see what comes out. So we still have our adjuster screw, so that's loose enough I can take it off by hand. Now, I'm just going to leave this tool on there. So we take the nut off. There's the nut. Set that aside. Now there are spacers here. There's a spacer. We'll take that off and set it aside. Now here we have all our clutch discs. I'm going to take the strap wrench off since we don't need it at the moment. So now we're going to take the clutch plates out. There's the outer plate. This is the first plate, which is indexed to the clutch basket with the fingers on the outside. Then here, and it has the clutch material on it. It actually appears to be all clutch material. Some clutch plates are metal, probably steel, with cork bound to them. This appears to be all clutch material. There's no center plate to it. Now here is a metal plate which indexes to the hub of the clutch. A little rusty, that could stand to be cleaned up. Anyway, we'll keep going. We'll just take these all out. So we're going to take the hub of the clutch off, the input shaft of the transmission, and I'm going to put my magnetic tray underneath here because there's a whole bunch of little bits and pieces in there. That are going to come out. So we're going to take the push rod out while we're there. There are a couple of push rods in here. As you can see, that's not near long enough to go all the way across. There should be, I believe, 2 long push rods and a short one. Anyway, we'll set that aside. Now, someone has been in here, and I'm not sure what they've tried to use on this nut. It looks like maybe they've tried to take it off by hitting it with a chisel, which is unfortunate because the size of this nut, a 13/16 socket fits it, which is a spark plug socket. Now the problem was probably trying to hold this hub. There's a special tool available, readily available, to hold that. So putting that in there, wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. See, that went on without breaking anything. This socket doesn't fit as it should, but it goes on. Now, if we hold that, actually, I'm going to use part of this engine stud to help us. There, the nut is coming off. No brute force required. Okay, so take our special tool out, and so as that nut comes out, still need the socket. The nut holds this washer in. Behind this washer are a series of springs. So carefully remove the nut. Try not to let anything escape. Socket out of the way if we can. There we go. Okay, so here's the nut. Here's the nut. There's the nut. And we can see it's been modified by use of a chisel. Anyway, I have no doubts that we could replace that. We may do that. So here's the washer that the nut holds on, and here are the springs that provide the pressure to hold the clutch plates together to drive the transmission through this chain. So this hub comes off. and there's an inner hub and an outer hub. I'm just going to put that over here, and actually just put the spacer on it, put the nut on it, actually put it back correctly. So put the washer in, put the nut on, put that on, and that holds it all together so nothing can go missing. Now, this basket is on a set of splines on the input shaft to the transmission. So as there's several pieces here. As we see this, as this turns, there's a plate here that turns, and behind this plate is a series of roller bearings. So before we pull this off and have all those roller bearings go flying, we're going to gently persuade this plate to come off. It's not stuck really, it's just awkward to get a hold of. Again, I have my magnetic tray at the bottom here to catch anything, hopefully, that comes out. Now, of course, I've had these engines apart before, so I know what to expect, but if you haven't, well, this video will help you see what's underneath this stuff as it comes apart, but a manual is very helpful. So there's the plate that was behind the discs. It's machined differently, so there's an inside and outside. Now there is a spacer here. It's copper or brass that goes on the back there, and we can see our roller bearings. That's what the clutch basket rides on when you're in neutral. So when you're in neutral, you have the clutch handle squeezed and you work against the spring pressure to provide slack between the discs. So the clutch basket would turn and the input shaft would not if you're in gear. So we want to take this chain off again to get this sprocket off. So we're going to have to get those roller bearings out. So do this carefully. I'm going to put a clean cloth in there and just count them here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 of them. So we'll take those out, set them in our magnetic tray on our clean cloth here so they're not as likely to go missing. We'll take a few minutes and take these all out, nice and careful. Just going to hold up on the basket here to, actually my pliers are magnetic now, so take these all out one at a time. Actually, I'm going to put them straight into a little zipper bag here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Don't want to lose them. Of course, we can get new ones, but why would we want to replace something that's perfectly usable if we can save it and reuse it? So carefully remove the rest of these rollers. Now if I went ahead and pulled that basket off there, the rollers would simply fall out. Probably end up in our magnetic tray, and now because I've got half of the bearings, the rollers out, there we go, they're starting to jump out on their own. Take them out here. We're almost
as far as we're going to go here. Actually, once we have the clutch basket off, and this primary chain off, we'll take the inner chain case off. Make sure we can get at our seal. Actually, we'll take the clutch off and the primary chain off and see. We might be able to get it seal there. Okay, so all the rollers are out. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. That doesn't seem like they're enough. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So there's 24 little rollers in there. Close that up. Set it aside. Okay, so now the clutch basket is loose, so it can come off. And what we'll do, we'll see if we'll take the chain off of it, slide it off gently there. So there's the clutch basket. The rollers would have ridden in there. The primary chain is on. I'll take it off. Put it in the basket. Now there's a washer. No, actually there's a drive washer here, which goes on the input shaft. This is the input shaft of the transmission. This is the crankshaft of the engine. So that sprocket, which has a little surface rust on it, not too worn. The teeth aren't worn right to a point. There's still a flat on there, so I think that's reusable. And we can see there's a seal here. That's a inner chain case seal, which prevents oil from leaking out of the chain case. The sprocket is behind it here. And this is another oil seal, which is an inner chain case seal. That's not a crankshaft seal, because this inner chain case is attached to the engine. There may not even be a gasket between the inner chain case and the engine. Now, we saw earlier that the primary chain had a little bit of slack in it. This is the snout of the crankcase. So that is the crankcase seal. Look at that. I think I know what I'm talking about, but I don't. So this is the snout of the engine. This won't move. The transmission can move. It's mounted on 4 studs. And the tension on the primary chain that runs between these 2 shafts can be adjusted with gaskets. The number of gaskets that are put between the crankcase and the transmission case. Now the manual says if you put 4 gaskets in there and the chain is too loose, the chain is worn and should be replaced. So anyway, the chain that was loose, actually we can see that someone's had the transmission off because there's orange silicone here. So in order to adjust the chain, you have to take this off, take the transmission off, put new gaskets in, set this on, put the clutch all on, check the chain tension, and if it's too tight or too loose, you have to take it all apart and adjust the number of gaskets. So anyway, that will be fun for later. What we want to do is take the inner half of the primary chain case off, and all that's holding this on here now is one nut on a small stud here. We'll take this nut off. There's a washer here too. So we don't actually have to take this cover off to change that seal, that crankshaft seal. I'm going to take this off while we're here. So there's the nut and washer on that stud. And this case half should come off. There we go. So there's the inner chain case. There's a gasket between it and the crankcase. That someone's been in here, of course. It's 50 years old. Someone's been in here and backed up probably the old gasket with some silicone. And while we're looking at the inner chain case half here, there are 2 drain plugs in it. Actually, that looks like it may be the drain plug, and this may be a level plug and there's a boss here that could have been drilled as well. These engines were made for different applications, so they didn't always know exactly what machine they were going into, so they had a multitude of options for servicing. So this may have well been the level plug for some applications where a different outer chain case was used. Anyway, this is the inner chain case seal, and it's split. Actually, if we look, this sprocket is covered in oil, so this seal will be replaced. It's very hard. So that seal's probably the same age as that seal, unless this has been changed. That feels very crispy, but anyway, that's our inner chain case off, and we'll be changing that seal and the seal on the chain case here at least. Anyway, this will be continued. Thanks for watching.